I'm at a place right now that epitomizes what the global economy can do for a region or for a country. Sandton City, one of the most illustrious and exclusive regions on the African continent, is one of those examples. I'm surrounded by the world's leading organizations' headquarters for the Africa region. I'm talking banks, luxury goods services, retailers, developers, technology firms, entertainment firms, resorts. The world's top 5-star hotels are all within this area. And that's not for nothing. In Sandton City, we've got huge amounts of capital inflows. We're talking billions of rands coming in and out every single day, simply because of the level of industry, trade, and commerce that is happening right around me as I speak. And if we think of it, reflecting on Sandton City at large, people who argue for the benefits of globalization really have a point. I mean, it does cheapen some goods and avail other luxury goods that would otherwise be unavailable. It also increases the availability of goods and services. Things that one country could never produce on its own can now be imported from all over the world and be availed for that country's citizens. It increases income for consumers, it increases job creation, and as a result increases overall economic growth. I mean, if we look at it, right, globalization promises to increase the wealth and prosperity of a nation or a people. And the evidence is clear that it can do that. But globalization is not without its critics. There are people who argue against globalization. And I also want to take you to a place right now that rings true with some of these criticisms. Let's go.
So this is a story about this place where we come from. In South Africa we call it Thakhathi. The rest of the world calls it the ghetto. Some places call it the hood. In Brazil they call it the favela.
Said I'm from a place where being desolate is the same as being rich. Cause government resources are far from our reach. Corruption is plentiful and fat cats roam the streets, while at home we suffer with these rats.
Right here and right now, we are sitting just between 5 and 6 kilometers away from the very wealthy Sandton region. Here we are at the township of Alexandra, a place some call home. In South Africa we call it a kasi, what many around the world will call a ghetto. And here in Alexandra, the arguments against globalization can be seen. Environmental degradation, social degradation, lack of freedom, unemployment, poverty, really tough circumstances that render life really, really hard and unimaginable for many, many people. Here we see that globalization can equally cause high unemployment rates, lots of job losses. It can literally press down the wages of unskilled labor and lead to the exploitation of people. It results in the substitution of capital for labor, whereby machines are substituted for human beings and they are left in regions like this to fend for themselves. It can lead to a concept that has been noted as the disposability of human life. Zizek called it the disposable human life, where human lives, as we've seen all around here, young kids playing in toxins, playing in mud, with no hope of a future for tomorrow. And why is it that if globalization is supposed to give all the benefits that it promises to give, why is it that just 5 to 6 kilometers away from Sandton, where all the wealth that this continent can ever imagine is stored, we have this? When I reflect on this, it's quite sad, the disparity that is created by current systems. And I don't think it's anybody's fault. I don't think it's anybody's antagonistic aim to create this, but this is definitely a byproduct we cannot ignore. Is there a way that we can transcend this? Is there a way in which development, the influx of capital, does not have to result in great wealth for one region and abject poverty for another? I'd like us to go check out another spot that might just give us clues of how we can do this in future.
Soweto is a ghetto, a ghetto. Thakhathi is a ghetto, a ghetto. Gauteng is a ghetto.
We're here now at Nan Hua Temple, and this is one of the largest Buddhist temples on the African continent. It has an amazing story behind it. Nan Hua means southern flower, and it represents a sect of a Buddhist humanistic group that had a vision of having one of these temples on every continent in the world. When the CEO of the Bronkhorstspruit City Council went overseas to Taiwan looking for investment opportunities, he came across Master Xing Yun, who told him and shared with him the vision of having a Buddhist temple on the African continent. After some discussions, the master and the city council head decided that something like this would be perfect to bring in business opportunities and some economic growth into Bronkhorstspruit. In 1992, construction began. What amazes me about this place is that 95% of all the materials that you see here, even though they look foreign, are actually South African. And a lot of the building was done by South African artisans. That, for me, epitomizes global and local collaboration. Added to that, the mission of this temple is to influence and impact the lives of local people. Every Sunday, anybody from any culture or tradition is welcome to come here and enjoy a meal made and prepared by the monks of this place. They offer free classes which deal with aspects such as meditation, freedom, happiness, anything that will improve the lives of the community. And I get the sense that this temple and its community is here to serve, to benefit, and to work symbiotically with the local community whilst bringing things from its own culture that we can benefit from and learn from. So, if we go back and reflect on some of those criticisms against and arguments for globalization, we'll realize that one of the key arguments was that globalization brings with it cultural imperialism. In other words, people who argue against globalization say that it comes with other cultures that seek to dominate local cultures, to crowd out local cultures. But when I look at this case, and when I look at what Nan Hua has done and its approach to things, and I consider the fact that in the temple right behind me, the roof is actually made from 100% South African thatch. And the symbolism behind that is to honor the land on which the temple was built. Furthermore, if you look at the bottom of the temple, you'll find statues of African cultural kings, queens, diviners, and sangomas. And even though this temple was built with a Buddhist orientation, they acknowledge the nature of the traditional spiritual orientation of the people of this land. Another fascinating thing for me was the fact that there's a protea flower on the roof of the temple as a symbol of respect for South Africa, something that the Buddhists would call nanfei. For me, when I reflect on all of that, it makes me realize that there is a way for us to integrate as global communities, for us to introduce one another to our cultures, our practices, our norms, and the benefits thereof without dominating or crowding out one another, without oppressing one another, and without resulting in job losses, without resulting in income disparity, without resulting in income inequality, and all of the things that have been leveled against globalization. We're living in a global village, and as people of the 21st century, this is something we should embrace. But we can't do it in style. We can't do it transcendently. And this is an example of how it can be done.
La, la, la.